Alright, the test is going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be covering chapter 11. The first part of the test is reducing radicals. It'll be set up like this, and it's going to have A, B, C, D on it. And it's going to give you different options of what the answer is. And your job is to figure out which one's which, but that's pretty easy, because all you have to do is plug into your calculator. And once you plug in square root of 50 in, you'll find out that that's 7.07. And then you start plugging in all the answer choices, trying to figure out which one's correct. Until you get to this one. This is exactly the same as that, so those are equivalent. So the answer here is B. Same thing with this one. Now the correct way to do it is to break it apart into different pieces. You do that by putting 162 divided by x right there. And once you do that, you can look at all these numbers that have in common, 2 and 81, and 81 is 9 and 9. And then whenever you find anything that's similar, that's a double, that goes outside. Whatever's left in stays inside. That's the proper way of doing it. But on this test, in order to check your answer choices, you plug this in, and that gives you 12.7. You plug that in, that also gives you 12.7. And this is one of the easiest ways to find out what the answer choice is. In order to make it a little bit harder, sometimes they'll put a number in front of the radical. And again, that's not a big deal at all. All you have to do again is plug into your calculator. And it still works if there's a number in front of it. And then pick an answer choice to see if that would work. Until you find one that matches. Okay? Same thing here, but this one has the word all, which means you have multiple answers. And we have square root of 200, which is 14.142. Then we'll try this one. That's exactly the same. This is equivalent. How about that one? This one is not. It even does this. Those little stars means multiplication. And even this one. And this is how you could tell which ones are equivalent. Now on a test that's 10 points, which means 2 questions. This one right here has 35 points, which means 7 questions on the test. The first thing is to draw a line to the matching exponent rule. This exponent rule means if there's an exponent outside, this one goes here, and those multiply. That's the power rule. This one right here, if you have an exponent on top and an exponent on the bottom, once you expand them, these two cross out. That's the same as subtracting these two. See that? 3 minus 2 is 1x. That is our quotient rule. This rule right here talks about multiplication. If I have x cubed times x to the 4th power, when you expand them out, that's x7. You could have just added them together. 3 plus 4 is 7. We call that the product rule. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. That's the 0 rule. And anything that has a negative exponent, you take it from the top and bring it to the bottom of the denominator right there. We call that the negative exponent rule because that's negative. So these are all the rules, and this is what they do. You have to be familiar with them for one of the questions on the test. Now, the 6 other questions on the test, actually 5 other questions on the test are going to have to do with simplifying like this. So we'll go ahead and start working on them together. In order to simplify, there are 4 rules. Step number 1, you always handle whatever has an exponent outside the exponent first. Then you handle anything that has a negative power second. Then you expand. Then you organize. So these are our 4 steps to handle here. We'll start off with the first step. There's none of these. There's no negative exponents. So we're going to go straight to expanding. That's 4, 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. Now when I organize the second one, these are side by side, so this one goes side by side here as I organize them. Negative 3 goes to 4. 5 A's go with these A's right here. 1 B, 6 C's. You end up with 7 C's, 3 B's, 8 A's, and 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now remember, these are side by side, they're multiplying, they're not subtracting. Anything to the power 0 is 1. Alright, again, we'll start right here. There's nothing like that. And negative exponents, here we are. Right here, right there, and right there. And remember the whole power exponent right here, if you have a negative exponent, it goes from the top to the bottom. So all we got to do is take this a negative 4, bring it down here, it becomes a positive 4. Then scratch that one out. This one comes down here, becomes positive 3. This one comes down here, becomes positive 4. After we do that, we go to expand. Now I have a negative 2, 7 B's, 2 C's, a 7, the side by side, so I organize it next to that negative 2, in parentheses always, and an A. So I've expanded the top, now I'll expand the bottom. There are 4 A's, 3 B's, 4 C's. Now if you have anything on top and bottom, they cross out. And then we can go ahead and get our final answer. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. All the A's crossed out. We have 4 B's on top. All the C's crossed out. Now we'll go to the bottom. We have 3 A's on the bottom and 2 C's. Alright, 2 more to go. Again, our first setup is finding anything that has an exponent with something outside of it. They don't have that. Second thing is finding anything that has a negative power. And there are 3 of those. This one comes down here, becomes positive. This one goes up, becomes positive. This one goes up, becomes positive. Now that leaves me with 5. X squared, that's 2 x's. X cubed, that's 3 x's. Z4, that's 4 z's. On the bottom, I have 25, 5 y's, and 3 y's. Nothing crosses out, but this reduces, it becomes 1 over 5. On the top, I have 5 x's, 4 z's, that's the top. Now I'll go to the bottom. The bottom we have 8 y's. Really, really easy. As long as you go step by step, this is not too hard. Again, here we always start off with anything that has an exponent, with an exponent, parentheses or exponent outside. And there are 3 full-size things in here, a number, and an x and a y. So that little 2 goes to all 3 of them. 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So 3 squared is 3 times 3. X squared with a 2 right next to it, that's 2 times 2, that's to the 4th. And here we have a y with a 3 and 2 next to each other, that's multiplication, y6. On the bottom, I have x negative 3, y 5, z. So our first step, anything that has a parenthesis with an exponent on it. Our second step, anything that has a negative exponent. This one goes from the bottom to the top. And now it's positive. Now after that, we expand. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 x's. 3 x's. 6 y's. That's the top. On the bottom, I have 5 y's and 1 z. Now these cross out. And this is what we have left over. We have a 9, 7 x's, and a y on top. Now we go to the bottom, we just have a z. A rectangle has an area and a length. Find the width. Now if you have an area and a length, you divide them by each other. And when you divide them by each other, you can find the width. In order to do that, though, we divide using a fraction sign. Because if we do it this way, then it looks like this. And like this one. And then we know how to handle those. 100 divided by 5 is just 20. I have 9 x's on top. And 8 y's. On the bottom I have 5 x's. and 3y's. And after all these cross out, we're going to end up with 20 x4 on the top, y5 on the top. And that's your answer. Rectangle has a width and a length. And the formula is the area is length times width. And since I have the length and the width, I'm going to multiply them together to get the area. So this is 5x cubed y to the 7th. And all of this is times 4x squared y squared. Again, we look for exponents outside. There's none. Negative exponents, there's none. Then we just expand. The 4 goes next to the 5 because they're next to each other. That gives me 20 x5 y9. Alright. Here, the one question that can mess with you when sequences is the word rate of growth. There's only 15 points, which is 3 questions on this test. But the rate of growth is the rate that is growing by. What number are we getting from here to here? We are multiplying by 2. Multiplying by 2. Multiplying by 2. So the rate of growth here is 2. We use the rate of growth in the formula y equals a times b to the x. This right here is the rate. We call it rate of growth or rate of decay. Again, we're doing the same thing here. In this case, it's decaying, getting smaller, so instead of multiplying, we're actually dividing. And we don't use this divide, we use this divide as a fraction. So these are big numbers, I don't know what they're dividing by, but I know that 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. And 5 divided by 4 is this one. And 80 divided by 4 is 20. So this has to be 1/4. You are dividing by 4. You put a 1 on top because there's no other number up there. Dividing by 4 multiplying by 1/4 gives you the same answer. Now here we're asking to find f of 5 and f of x equals to 5. There's a really easy trick to do these. You just put f of 5 right here. And you put f of x equals to 5 right here. And you draw an x and y table on the equal sign. Whenever they're asking for f of 5, they're asking wherever x is 5. Here's x, here's 5. This is the answer they're looking for. So for this one, it's 5/4. Now this one, the 5 is under the y. So I'm looking for y, 5. There it is. Okay, the answer there is 4. So here you would say y is 5/4. Here you would say x equals 4. Because that's where it was located under. So the trick here is using the x and y table. Finish this sequence. A lot of times we look at this sequence, we try to figure out by using our heads, but what I would like to do is try to use a calculator. Remember, it's a times b to the x. This is the formula, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to turn on my calculator and go to y equal to. Now I know that a is the first letter of the alphabet, so we need the first number to start off with, which is 2. Times b, that's what I don't know. So I'm going to just pick a number. I'm going to pick 5 to the x. Then I'm going to go to the table. 2, 10, 50. That's not 50. I need it to be bigger. So instead of the number 5, I'm going to use the number 8. Let's try that. 2, 16, 128. Oh, there it is. See? Third one's 128. Fifth one's 8192. The rate I was using right there was 8. Again, I just kept on putting numbers in there until it worked. It's not that hard. So to fill it in, we're going to go with 2, 16, 10, 24. You know it's multiplying because it's getting bigger. You just have to figure out what number it is. Okay, this is the part of the test that has the most points. It's 9 questions. It's 45 points. And we have 2 formulas to use. This normal formula you use if there's no percentages used. This formula you use if there is a percentage. The majority of these questions on the test have percentages, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. It says for the following equations, find the initial value and find the percent increase or decrease. So we're looking for the percentage and we're looking for the initial value. The initial value is really easy. It's the number in the front. They're both the letter A's or initial value. So this right here is initial value. That means we started off at 1100. Now, we're going to look for the percent change. Now, the percent change is always 1 plus or minus something. This number is smaller than 1, so that's 1 minus. Now, if you had $1, you end up with 98 cents. That means you subtracted 2 cents from it. Now, that is a decimal. We need to change it to a percent. So take the decimal, move it 2 spots. This is a 2% decrease. So the trick is just look right here and find out if we're going up or down. Let's try it again. This is the initial value. Here we have 1 take away 0.03. They gave us the number, so all we got to do is change it from a decimal to a percent. Again, just move the decimal spot 2 spots. Okay, that's 3% decrease again. Let's try this one. This is the initial value. Now this is 1 that got bigger, so that's 1 plus. It got bigger by 7 cents. So this is our answer. But it's a decimal. To change it to a percent, just move it over twice. It's a 7% increase because 1.07 is bigger than 1. Over here, they give it to us. This is the initial value. This is right here. Just move it twice. A 6% increase because it said plus. Fill the table for Tom's money as he started off with 500. That's the initial value, y equals 500. And he kept on adding 23%. Now, since that's that percent, we have to use a percent formula, which is 1, either plus or minus. They said adding, so we're going to use plus 23%. But we need to use the percent, change it to a decimal. Now, last time we went this way to make it a percent. This way we're going to go down this way to make it a decimal. That becomes 0.23. to the power x. Go to my calculator. 500, 1 plus 0.23, and on top of it there's an x. And there we can start off with 500. Then it goes to 615. And then it goes to 756 plus 930. And all the other numbers. Okay, let's do it again. This time says, write the equation given the following table. Now for this one, I don't see any percentages because there's not any decimals. So we're going to try to see if we can locate it the right way first. So y equals a times b to the x. A is the initial value. When we first started at number 0, we have 2. From here to here, I'm multiplying by 5. From here to here, I'm multiplying by 5. From here to here, I'm multiplying by 5. So the rate is 5 to the x. Now, I don't stop right there. I try to see if I can make it work. 2, 5 to the x. And it's exactly the same. All right, well, that's your test. Good luck on it.